Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It's your boy, Libertarian Election Predictions, back at again with another video. So today, I wanted to do the political compass test. I wanted to do it actually for the last few days, but I thought this would be a time-consuming video, and it's on a weekday, so I decided to do against it. So since today is a Friday, I have a little bit of time, so I decided, why not? Let's just make a video. And now that my native language classes are over with, I can just now I'm much more free, and all I really have to do for school is preparing for finals. But I thought I could like take a break for like half an hour, maybe do a video, and then yeah. So as you guys may have known, it's been a year since I started my channel. Our community right now stands at 81 subscribers, and I'm really pleased. I wish we could go a little bit faster, but again, we have to realize we're in a competition with other YouTubers like Red Eagle Politics, Let's Talk Elections. They've already been well established, so yeah. But I mean, the point of this is just to say that our channel. I hope that we can see more growth. So guys, so in today I'll be taking the political compass test. So it's been about a year since I took it. Last time I took it was in August of 2021, which was, I believe, August 13th. So watch the August 13th video. I will link that video in the description, and I will put a card in the video. So, oh guys, I also wanted to talk about an election night. So last night I uploaded a video. So it talked about what if Al Gore was president in 2008. So I highly encourage you guys to watch that. Um, I mentioned that in the description that I will be making an election night. So I'm not sure when I'm gonna start. Maybe at once after school ends, I'll start, and then maybe have it in within the week after my school ends. So you guys, see, I'll keep you posted on it. I will let you guys know when it comes out, and it will be an instant premiere. So yeah. So let's get into today's video without wasting much time. So this is a just a few propositions. So I think most of you guys, like, if especially most of my audience I know is political YouTubers. So you guys may be familiar with this test, but for those who aren't, this is just like a general test, not a very accurate test either to find out your political values. There are other tests like 8 values, supply values. Those are really good tests. Anyway, let's get into this. So if economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. I strongly agree with that. I don't like globalization. I think globalization has killed off many of our jobs, but if it's happening, and unfortunately it is happening, I think it should still put human life over the interests of corporations. I'd always support my country whether it was right or wrong. This one is a tough one because I'd support generally what most of the time what our country does, but if we like went into war with Ukraine, or we're committing genocide, or if we're actively encouraging a genocide in another country, or selling arms to countries that fund genocides, then no, I disagree. I won't always support my country, but I would generally put my country first. No one chooses their country at birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. I strongly disagree with that. I mean, if you were born in like a very poor third world country, maybe you could have an argument that you don't like your country of birth. But again, I think every country is unique in one way or another. So you don't necessarily need to like it, but you should still at least be proud of your heritage and where you come from. Our race has many superior qualities compared to other races. I disagree with that. I don't think any race is superior to another. I think every human is equal in racial status. Maybe economic status is a different thing, but overall, I do not think any one race is better than another. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I disagree with that. An example of this would be like the United States and the Soviet Union. So the two were both enemies, but they came together to defeat the Nazis. But that doesn't make them by any means friends. So, like, let's say an enemy, I have an enemy, and then someone else has the same enemy as me, and then we unite together to fight with each and fight our common enemy. That doesn't mean that me and him all of a sudden are friends. So No, I would not say the enemy of my enemy is my friend unless your friend unless the enemy of your friend is the same and you guys are been friends. So like something like America and Britain, and then that in that case that would apply. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. I agree. Like sometimes if you're like trying to smash out those rogue radical terrorist groups, then yeah. But again, I think generally international law is vague and sometimes it's written in favor of terrorists and terrorist groups. But I mean, sometimes it's sometimes if we need to like do it for the sake of human good, for the human good, then yeah. But I'd rather say that we should stick to international law. Though there is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. I strongly agree with that. I would say that's, but I would say the now part is a bit inaccurate because it's always been there for like a long time. But I see now, but I could agree, understand why they're saying that is it's now more prevalent to see a lot of misinformation. We saw that with COVID. We saw that with a lot of inaccurate statements from presidents from both parties. So yeah, and we also know that the media is all constantly lying to us as well. So now this is where much of my economic axis is defined by. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. So I would say I agree with it because usually, in our society, usually people are more divided by class. Like you usually rich versus poor rather than race because you can have a black person who's poor and white person who's poor and they have the same nationality. So I would say, and there is more of a class division than by racial or national division. Although I'd say there is, I would have strongly agreed if there's racial divisions. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Again, this one is a very difficult, controversial one because both are really bad for the economy. Inflation is drives prices up, making currency worthless, but at the same time, you don't want to have 60% of your population unemployed. But I would say I agree with it because even if your unemployment rate is like let's say very low, like 2%, but you got rampant inflation, then essentially the workers' salaries are essentially worthless. So I'd say you're better off controlling inflation because even if your unemployment rate is like low, but inflation is high, then it really doesn't mean anything for a worker. So let's say I'm a worker making like 30 grand and then you have rampant inflation. It kind of makes my 30 grand worthless, right? Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. I would agree with that. I mean, we shouldn't I mean, to be fair, we shouldn't regulate the fuck out of corporations, but at the same time, corporations don't care about regulations. All they care about is profits, and we see that a lot. We see that in cities like New Delhi, India, where if you go there, there's massive amounts of pollution and air quality is so bad, and that is because because corporations just don't give a damn about the rules or the well being of people. So I agree, Corbin, that corporations do require regulation to protect our environment. But we should not be regulating the fuck out of them. From each according to his ability to each according to his need is a fundamentally good idea. Fuck that shit. No, that's a communist idea. The freer the market, the freer the people. Absolutely, absolutely. But again, spoiler alert. You by the word free, you need to make it sure that there are regulations on it because if you have a completely deregulated, completely free system, then large conglomerates can take advantage of that and then snap up smaller corporations, usually called vertical integration. So yeah, kind of like how the steel, like I think who was that industrialist who used vertical integration? If you guys, I think I know who this is, but I forgot. So if you guys know what I'm talking about, please let me know who that was. But I remember this one industrialist who used vertical integration to kill off competition. So again, I'd say free markets should be free, but there should be certain restrictions on the ability to form monopolies, because monopolies artificially drive up prices. And then if you have like 60 businesses competing for something, then the prices would be low. Like let's say $2, $3 for a product. Whereas if you have one giant tycoon or giant industry, it might be $8. So that is absolutely, we need regulation. Which actually I think, excuse me, that ties into this one. It is a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. I disagree. I could understand that from the environmentalist point of view that they cost a lot to make and they impact the environment negatively. But again, I think there are still eco-friendly ways you can do this while still making money. So I'd say it's not. I won't say it's a sad reflection on our society because bottled water is made for our convenience. You can't just take a glass of water every single place you go, right? So yeah, land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Disagree. The easy for me disagree. Well, again, I do believe there are certain fundamental rights, like they're like humans do deserve the basic shell and basic requirement of shelter. But again, the shelter shouldn't be like a it shouldn't be like a shitty, should be like a shitty rundown place to house the homeless, but at least there's somewhere where a homeless could feel comfortable and kind of start working towards getting a home. Kind of like the continuity program in Finland. So, but I still do think it should not come at the expense of people who want to sell land. Like, land is what makes your society as prosperous as it is. If we don't have that, then essentially it's a communist society. Everything stagnates. So I would say that land should be a commodity to be bought and sold. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing. I disagree with that. It's true that there are billionaires who do exploit their workers and are wealthy. But again, I think there are a lot of them there are a lot of them who do pay their workers a fair wage. So I would not say that it's regrettable. Plus, without their wealth, our country wouldn't nearly be as wealthy if it wasn't for those people. But again, that's not to say that I'm advocating for the exploitation of workers. I believe workers should have a good salaries and be able to provide for their families. But I won't say it's regrettable that many personal fortunes are being made by people who manipulate money. Because even if it is, there's still going to be some like mavericks who are very good at manipulating the market. Protection is sometimes necessary in trade. Absolutely, I cannot agree with that 100%. Deals like NAFTA and the TPP, and then all these deals ripped away in jobs that for so long provided a lot of people their incomes in the Midwest and in the industrial South. So definitely those communities are suffering, and we need to have protectionism. That is one of the pivotal reasons why Trump won in 2016, because he ran on protectionism, whereas Clinton was openly advocating for more free trade, which would have decimated even more jobs. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. I disagree with that. Well, I do agree companies their main goal is profit, but again, I feel like the companies should also be take care of their workers too, because if their workers are not motivated to work, if you're like paying them low, they're not motivated to work, then productivity is low, then that also affects the shareholders as well. So I think companies should also be more aware of the well-being of their workers who produce that productivity. The rich are too highly taxed. Ooh. So this one's a little bit of a challenging one. Sorry guys. So I would say like the rich, I mean, discounting the loopholes and all that, because there are like rich people who do evade taxes by using certain loopholes. But I think if you don't factor that in, then yeah, you could say they do pay a lot of tax. But remember, the richest people paid more and more in tax in 70 years ago than they pay today. So I would disagree with that. Although that's not to say if you take out those loopholes, enforce those if you remove those loopholes and force those all the ultra wealthy to pay their taxes, then yeah, there is an argument that could be said that they are highly taxed. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. Ooh, I've been speaking a lot today. I'd strongly agree with that. I do believe the masses should have healthcare that is good, and people should have the healthcare they deserve. But I would say it's kind of counterproductive to like give Jeff Bezos government run healthcare, right? Because after all, why force people like to stay in a public system, right? When if you got the money to pay, then you can essentially like allow those people to seek better healthcare. Government should penalize businesses that mislead the public. This one is a controversial one, as I'd say that in generally speaking, if a business does say that, oh, this product is gonna help you, but it in fact it helps you, then it kills you, then yeah, and if they do not like write any side effects or don't mention that beforehand, then I would say yes. Then then the government should hold a business accountable for it. But if it's something that if they said it but you didn't notice it, then you can't really blame the business for that, right? So I'd say it's both ways, but generally speaking, if it if like it depends. But if they mislead you pretty badly, then I would say I would agree with it. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability to have predator multinationals. Strongly agree with that. I strongly agree. It ties into the freer the market, the freer the people. While that logic is true, but you don't want a completely free market, or else there will be some big tycoons that are gonna monopolize everything. So to prevent that, you need restrictions that prevent a lot of those monopolies from forming. So now let's look at some of my social values. Abortion when the woman's life is not threatened should always be illegal. I strongly agree with that. I think abortion is just like downright murder, and it's downright murder, and that's not to say that women should be forced to have children, but I would say it should be illegal as actually, I don't really want to comment on it. I just think our abortion is just downright murder, and it's just awful. It's just awful, and it causes a lot of problems and later in life too. All authority should be questioned. I would agree with that. Generally speaking, I do not like the word all because you're not going to question the authority of your parents, your teachers, or the police, right? You're not going to question their authority, right? But any other authority, like the one that like tyrants, yeah, that then you can question that. An eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. Disagree with that. That's just vengeance, and it's just barbarism at its very best. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. Hmm. I would agree with that because while I could understand. Well, I could understand. I understand that museums are an integral part to preserving our history. But if the museum is just making terrible financial decisions, then that's not the problem of the public, right? But I mean, if they're making good financial decisions and are struggling, then I can understand that it's we should fund it. But if they're making terrible decisions, if they're making stupid ass decisions, then no. So I would agree that if they cannot stand on their own, then it's not our problem. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. I agree with that. I mean, I personally would advocate for every child to go to school. I think education is an integral part for your future, and honestly, like as good as as good as the ideal seems, but there's always people that just don't want to go to school. They're just lazy, and they don't want to work their ass off. But they'll suffer the consequences, bro. They'll suffer the consequences like of not going to school. Like they'll fall into like drugs, addiction, and yeah. All people have their rights, but it's better for all is that different sorts of people should keep it to their own kind. Nah, I think that we should people should be able to express what they want freely. I mean, as long as it doesn't threaten public safety or it doesn't make any threats towards anyone, then I think people should be able to express themselves without fear of like of the government going after them or getting arrested. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. I disagree with that. I don't really like spanking children. I mean, it's really not the way to discipline them. Like studies have like shown that the spanking your kids can like and it does have negative psychological effects. While I can understand if your child is acting erratically out of control, then and that is, but I think it could be used as a last resort. But there are parents who sometimes do overstep and overspank their kids, and it causes significant damage. So I would disagree. But I mean, but if it's like very light, then I can understand. It's natural for children to keep some secrets. Yeah, I mean, even we all don't say that. You've never kept a secret from your parents. We've all done that before, and but I would not advocate for doing that because that's gonna come back to bite you, right? Like as uncomfortable as it seems to like tell your parents about something that is uncomfortable, but you still got to open up, right? Your parents may be mad at you at first, but they'll at least help you find a way out of it, right? Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. I agree. um I'd say like people should, but like I mean if people are legally prescribed it and people are using it for their own use, then I don't give a fuck on like why the fuck should we just like arrest them. But like if they're selling it though without illegal, if they're selling it illegally, then yeah, they deserve to be arrested. The dealer should be arrested. But like if they're giving marijuana, selling or using marijuana legally, then I agree it shouldn't be a criminal offense. And honestly, what point does it serve criminalizing it? Even if you do criminalize it, there are people who are going to use it, right? There's still people there are like very mavericks like drug traffickers, marijuana traffickers will still find a way to circumvent it, right? So honestly, but that's not to say that there shouldn't be any regulations or and make it a wild west, but I say banning it doesn't really do much either. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. I would say I mostly agree with that statement, but I do think schools should also like teach like traditional values, like how to be a good parent and teaching children how to live on their own. Like I know my school does offer living on your own course, which I think I've not taken that, but I think it might be a good course for like somebody who's like a senior in high school who's going to college and then got to be alone in your dorm. So that's a good that's might be a good course if you want to understand how to live on your own. But I generally delegate that to parents because it's really the parents' responsibility to make sure their kid understands how to behave in society and may make sure that their kids are instilled with good values. But I think school should play a small part, should play a role in it too. Although I think the major job of school should be to help children like excel in school and excel in college and help them find jobs that they're passionate about. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. I strongly disagree with that. It's just mean to say that certain people can't reproduce because they have some disabilities. Because there are a lot of people who have disabilities but are good parents. So I just think it's just downright evil to like deny certain people their right to reproduce. Because let me tell you this, my hand doesn't fully turn or rotate, but that won't make me a bad parent, right? I mean, unless I do bad things, but I've not done a single bad thing in my life, so it's just wrong. The most important thing for children is to learn to accept discipline. I would say it's not the most important thing, but I would agree that it is a very important that children understand discipline, like how to behave in society, and like how to behave, because if you don't teach that, then kids will be doing whatever they want, and then they'll end up getting in trouble, and then who pays for that? The parent, right? So really, I think kids should accept discipline. There are no savage and civilized human peoples. There are only different cultures. I strongly disagree with that. Ooh, oof. So sorry, guys. I've been speaking for a while and I'm just losing my voice. I mean, while there are like different peoples, that's true, but it's wrong to say that there aren't any savage people. Like look at the Taliban, for instance. They actively encourage violence against women. Like anytime a woman doesn't wear or her hijab in public, then they get beaten. So I just say that that is very savage. That's a very savage civilization. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunities should not expect society support. So like, oh my god, oh my god, guys, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's been a long day for me today, but I hope I can sleep a little bit today. Anyway, I strongly agree with that because that like if you just choose to be lazy, then I like let's say person A chooses to be lazy and I work my ass off, for like a long time, and then they willfully chose not to do that. I'm not gonna help them because they willfully chose that, chose their predicament. I didn't tell them to do that. When you're in trouble, it's not better to think about it, but to keep busy. No, I'd say you should try to solve the problem first, because running away from problems doesn't do anything. First generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. Strongly disagree. I say I would disagree with that because, well, it is true. There are some immigrants who do have a tough time adapting to their new countries. Not all first generation immigrants do. Like my father is an Indian immigrant and he can speak English perfectly fine. Like, granted, he's already known English since he was in his high school, but he was able to fairly integrate into the new culture. He told me that it is like there were some things were new, but overall everything else was like still the same, like interacting with people and all that. So my father didn't really have any trouble when he first came here. What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for us. Strongly disagree. Whatever is good for them isn't good for us. Like if they're making like a huge amounts of windfall amounts of profits, and then meanwhile we're struggling to pay for our gas. It's not good for us by any means. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. Strongly agree with that. We don't know how trustworthy they are. To be fair, let's see now. This is where much of our another part of the libertarian authoritarian axis. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed. Yep, strongly agree with the passage of the Patriot Act and that allowed the government to spy on us even more, and we even see some acts, some forms of it today. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments. I'd say I disagree because, well, it is an advantage, but one-party states just suck. They just it's like because if you're giving a party unlimited amount of power, whether it be Republican or Democrat parties, if you give both either one of them unlimited power, those people will be so accustomed to their power, and they'll never give up power, because once you give power to someone, they're gonna keep it, and it's the same thing. They'll try to crush their dissenters. So I'd say one party states are just terrible. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers. I disagree with that. Well, it's true that wrongdoers should be worried, but again, the government is spying on us and on everyone, not just the criminals. The death penalty should be an option for most serious crimes. I disagree. I think the death penalty, well, it's true that that certain people do deserve to be executed for crimes, but there are a lot of innocent people who never even committed a murder or a crime, but and they get falsely convicted and then unnecessarily lose their life. And also, the death penalty is antiquated and it's expensive. So I would say the maximum prison sentence should be like life in prison, but with no possibility of parole and with no possibility of rehabilitation as well. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. I disagree because I do believe there should be a general structure for society. But what is a civilized society, honestly? Like, honestly, what do they mean by a civilized society? Abstract art that doesn't represent anything should be considered strongly agree. Like, if I just scribble over a canvas, that's not art, right? In criminal justice, punishment should be more important. No, I disagree with that. I feel like trying to punish people for a very minor crimes, it's just gonna make it worse. Rather than like if you like commit a crime, like it's like, but it's not like a very serious crime and you're like rehabilitated, then and given a second chance, then it's more productive for society, and it also frees up space for prison, so that way the people who rightfully deserve to go to prison are in prison, and people who don't deserve to be in prison aren't in prison. But I do strongly agree that it is a waste of time to rehabilitate some criminals, like serial killers, rapists, and mass murderers. You can't rehabilitate them unless like they have a good heart by name, if they have a good inside heart. But again, even then, you can't rehabilitate those people because they're just fucking nuts. What can we do? The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and artist. I would agree with that. I think writers and artists are important to society as they like literally give us our literature, and their documents could be stored for many years. But again, business people and manufacturers, they like are one of the main engines of our economy. If we didn't have that, then we'd be a poverty stricken country. So yeah. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. I would agree with that. Well, I don't detest the fact that mothers can have jobs, but I feel like if they want to have a job, fine, that's fine. But their first main duty should be to take care of the kids in the house. Although husbands should play a role too, like the wife shouldn't be doing it all alone. Multinational corporations are unethically exploiting the plant genetic roosters. I strongly agree. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. This is one where I kind of like change my opinion on because, well, of course we all detest the establishment, and we all would like to see it toppled one day. But again, they're still in power, so we may need to compromise with them. But that's not to say that we should do everything they say. But for right now, they're in power, and we can't really do much. And even if you try to topple them out of power, they're like they have unbelievable amounts of money, and we can't really like out and spend them. So yeah. So now this is just some random stuff here. Astrology accurately explains many things. I disagree. I don't think astrology really explains anything. Cannot be moral without being religious. I disagree. As a very religious person myself, I mean, I'm pretty religious, but I do believe that there are like atheists, who are morally good people. So I think it's wrong to say that. Charity is better than social security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. I disagree. Like both, a good mix of both would be good, but I would say that social security is like more widespread and it like helps people. Some people are naturally unlucky. Strongly agree. There are just some people who are unlucky, and they're it's just their situation, not like they did it to themselves. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. I disagree. Like I'm not opposed with like instilling religious values in my child, but I just don't want my school doing that. Like forcing my children to like participate in Christian praying. Although I do not, I do I like although don't believe me, I like Christian praying, but I believe that school isn't the place for that. I think school is just a place to learn and get our kids ready. I think we can. And that there's a reason why Sunday schools are like, or and why grand churches exist. Sex outside of marriage is usually immoral. Strongly agree. I do not believe in like having sex with someone else when you're married to somebody. A same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded. I disagree with that. As much as we may, As much as we may like or hate like having gay parents, but if those parents are like if the couple are like in a very stable, loving relationship, and they genuinely are and they genuinely are for our child and for the child and are genuinely interested in their child, then I mean, you can't detest that fact that if they and I believe kids should have parents. Even if it's two moms or two dads. I still think kids should have a parents, but those parents should be like genuinely loving. They should have a very stable relationship and should be very genuinely interested. Porn depicting consenting adults should be legal. Strongly disagree. Porn has destroyed many families, and I'm telling you right now, not that I've watched porn, don't fucking watch it. Porn destroys tons of families. What goes on in private bedroom between consenting adults? Strongly agree. Although, then there is one exception of it, like unless if there's like some domestic abuse going on, then like the police should intervene. But I believe the state is just too much. So I strongly agree. No one can feel naturally homosexual. I would say I would agree with that because I mean, if you're the only way you can know you're really homosexual is like if you like take it, if you're like tested, or like or if you're confirmed to be gay. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. I strongly agree with that. So let's see where I stand. Let's see if I changed. Oh, I'm actually really very close. I'm actually very close to the center. I actually moved a little to the left economically. So here we go. So here are my results, guys. So I'm pretty much a dead centrist in the economic right 0.13 and social libertarian negative 0.51. So anyway, guys, that is it for today's video. Please like, share, and subscribe. I will make this as an instant premiere. So I hope you guys like today's video, and if you guys take the test, let me know where you stand. So I will be ending the video right here. So it's so libertarian election predictions out.